A federal judge has unleashed a scathing rebuke of California's newly drawn congressional map. This isn't just a political squabble, it's a fight over race, power, and control. Judge Kenneth Lee, in a fiery dissent, called California's redistricting a case of racial gerrymandering. The map, which could potentially hand more power to the Democrats, has ignited a fierce debate. The core of the issue? Were these district lines drawn to favor racial groups or simply to reflect the state's shifting demographics? This isn't just about a state's redistricting plan. It's about whether the line between partisanship and racial politics has been crossed. Lee didn't mince words, calling out the political motivations behind the map. And the mapmaker? Paul Mitchell. He's accused of using race to engineer districts that would guarantee more Democratic victories. But the question remains, did California cross a line in its attempt to combat the Republican strongholds across the nation? What happens when politics meets race in the quest for more power? And is this really about the Latino community, or just another maneuver in the game of political chess? Stay with me as we unpack the truth behind the maps and their far-reaching implications. In California, the stakes have never been higher. The state's voter-approved map redraws congressional districts, and it's been called a blueprint to tilt the playing field in favor of the Democrats. But is it a step toward better representation or a deeply partisan move? The core issue? The role of race in shaping electoral districts. Judge Kenneth Lee argued that California's map drew boundaries in ways that gave undue advantage to Democrats, especially in Latino-majority districts. While proponents of the map argue it's about giving Latino voters the power they deserve, Lee, in his dissent, believes it crosses into racial gerrymandering. He pointed directly to the involvement of Paul Mitchell, the mapmaker, accusing him of designing the map with racial goals at its heart. And yet, the majority of the court ruled in favor of the map. Their decision? Race wasn't the primary factor in drawing these lines, but rather, it was an effort to maintain political balance in response to Republican-led gerrymandering in Texas. So what we have here is a political game, one that pits California's Democrats against Republicans in a battle for control of the U.S. House. But is it simply a matter of partisan strategy? Or does it speak to something deeper about our country's racial and political landscape? Redistricting is nothing new. It's been a part of American politics for centuries. Every 10 years after the census, states redraw their congressional maps to reflect population shifts. But in the last few decades, this process has become more about power than fairness. The idea is simple. Districts should reflect the demographic makeup of a state, giving each community a voice. But over time, both parties have found ways to manipulate the system, creating what are known as safe districts. These are areas designed to secure electoral victories for one party, often at the expense of true representation. California's redistricting isn't happening in a vacuum. It's the latest chapter in a long history of gerrymandering where race and politics collide. In the 1980s and 1990s, courts forced states to create minority-majority districts to ensure better representation for African American and Latino communities. But as California's population grew, so did the competition for political power. The map in question, Proposition 50, emerged out of this broader historical context. In 2021, California's Democratic leaders, responding to Republican gerrymandering in Texas, decided to redraw the lines to create 5 more Democratic-leaning districts. But how much of this was about demographic fairness, and how much was about gaining political ground? And then, the storm hit. A federal judge, Kenneth Lee, didn't just disagree with the map, he eviscerated it. In a blistering dissent, Lee accused California of engaging in racial gerrymandering. This wasn't just a mild rebuke. This was an attack on the very foundation of the redistricting process. Lee was clear. The goal wasn't just to reflect the state's demographic changes. The goal was to create more Democratic seats, and to do so, race was used as a primary factor. It wasn't just a political decision, it was a racial one. By drawing one district with a clear Latino majority, California's Democratic lawmakers, Lee argued, crossed a line. The dissent was a reminder of the tension that has always existed between race and politics in America. Yes, there are undeniable advantages to creating districts that reflect the growing Latino population in California. But when race is the central element in district creation, the question becomes, who is this really for? Is it to empower the people, or is it simply about gaining political leverage? This ruling didn't just shake the political landscape in California. It threw gasoline on a fire that was already burning in Washington. The mechanics behind this redistricting process are far from simple. On the surface, it may seem like a response to population changes and a push to give more power to Latino voters. But beneath it all, there's a much deeper game being played. California's redistricting is part of a larger national struggle between Democrats and Republicans over control of the U.S. House of Representatives. The decision to create more Latino majority districts wasn't just about representation. It was also a calculated move to ensure more Democratic victories. Paul Mitchell, the mapmaker, may not have explicitly said it, but his actions spoke volumes. According to Judge Lee, Mitchell's design was aimed at boosting Democratic power by drawing districts that would favor Latinos, a move that the dissenting judge considered a direct example of racial gerrymandering. This wasn't about addressing the needs of a specific group. It was about crafting a political advantage. In redistricting, the battle is always about who controls the map, because the map controls the votes. California's Democratic leaders knew this, which is why they pushed forward with a strategy that would solidify their grip on the state's political future. The question is, in trying to create fairness for one group, did they end up tipping the scale too far in their favor? As the legal battle raged on, the tide turned once again. Despite the powerful dissent from Judge Lee, the majority of the court ruled in favor of California's new redistricting map. This wasn't just a minor victory. It was a significant moment in the ongoing war for control of the U.S. House. The court's decision allowed California to proceed with the map, which could very well increase the number of Democratic seats in Congress. But this victory wasn't without a storm of backlash. The California Republican Party, determined to stop the map, announced it would appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. Their argument? The redistricting violated the Voting Rights Act and unfairly tilted the scales toward one political party. In their eyes, this wasn't just a political move, it was an unconstitutional one. It's a classic clash of ideologies. Democrats arguing for fairness and representation, Republicans accusing them of manipulating the system for political gain. But at the heart of it all is the power struggle, a power that could shift the balance in Washington. The stage is set for yet another legal battle, one that could have profound consequences not just for California, but for the entire nation. For the average voter, the implications of this redistricting are profound. This isn't just about politicians in Sacramento or Washington fighting for control. This is about how your vote is counted and the power you hold as a citizen. California's new map could very well determine who represents you and whether your voice is heard in the halls of Congress. Imagine living in a district that has been carefully drawn to ensure one party's dominance. While redistricting might aim to ensure better representation for Latino communities, the reality is that it can also dilute the voice of other voters. The lines aren't just being redrawn for better representation. They're being drawn to create a political advantage, and that raises important questions. Do you want a system where districts are designed to guarantee victory for one party? Or do you want one that ensures that your vote matters, regardless of your political affiliation? This isn't just a technical debate. It's a fight over the integrity of the democratic process. And at the center of this fight are the voters, the people who stand to lose or gain the most from these political moves. California's redistricting isn't just a state-level issue. It has global consequences. Redistricting in the US is a reflection of the broader, often contentious landscape of global politics. The political maneuvers taking place in California and other states have a ripple effect that extends far beyond national borders. At the heart of the battle is the fight for power within Congress, but the outcomes could influence US foreign policy and international relations. A more Democrat-friendly Congress could lead to shifts in how the US handles global issues, from climate change to trade agreements. In contrast, a more Republican-leaning Congress might focus more on conservative priorities, which could alter America's approach to world affairs. Domestically, California's redistricting sends a powerful message about the importance of controlling political boundaries. As partisan gerrymandering spreads across the country, it underscores the growing divide between political ideologies, a divide that influences not just elections, but also the very structure of the American government. This isn't just about California's future. It's about what kind of country America wants to be. Do we want a system that gives power to the people, or one that consolidates it in the hands of a few? Now let's look into the future. What happens next? The outcome of California's redistricting case could shape the nation's political landscape for years to come. But the path forward is uncertain, and there are three possible scenarios. 1. The ideal outcome, balance restored. In the best-case scenario, the US Supreme Court steps in, invalidates the racial gerrymandering allegations, and ensures that districts across the nation are drawn with fairness, not to favor one party over another. If California's redistricting law passes scrutiny, it could set a precedent for more democratic, unbiased redistricting nationwide. The result? More voices heard in Congress, a fairer representation of all communities, and a more inclusive political process. 2. The status quo, a win for political maneuvering. If the redistricting map survives the legal challenges, we'll likely see a continued rise in the partisanship of district lines. Politicians empowered by these maps will double down on gerrymandering tactics to secure victories. Voters, especially those in swing districts, might feel the growing weight of a system designed to shut them out. While the outcome might tilt toward the Democrats, it will further divide the country, creating more polarized voting districts and reinforcing the ideological divide. 3. The worst-case scenario, constitutional crisis. In the worst case, if the Supreme Court rules against California's redistricting, it could set off a chain reaction. States across the country, emboldened by a ruling that rejects gerrymandering, might engage in even more blatant political manipulation. This could lead to a deeper erosion of trust in the electoral system, with accusations of unfairness and disenfranchisement taking center stage. The political landscape could become so fractured that the entire structure of American democracy might be called into question. Whichever way it goes, the decision on California's redistricting will have lasting implications. It's not just about 5 more Democratic seats in Congress. It's about what kind of democracy we're building for the future. As we watch this battle unfold, it's crucial to understand that the fight for control in California is just a microcosm of a much larger struggle for the soul of American democracy. The decisions being made now in courts and legislatures will impact how we all vote and who gets to have their voice heard in Washington. In this era of political warfare, redistricting isn't just about creating fairer districts. It's about who gets to decide the future of the country. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, this issue affects all of us. The map being drawn in California could either empower the people or entrench a system that serves the political elite. But one thing is certain, the fight for a fairer, more transparent democracy is far from over. It's up to us to keep pushing for a system where the people, not the politicians, hold the power. Don't let this moment pass without understanding the stakes. The future of our democracy depends on it. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never forget, your voice matters more than ever.